If you think nothing like this could ever happen to you, let me tell you. HOAs, greedy developers, and entitled people can flip your life upside down when you least expect it. Imagine walking down your own land one day, a property you inherited from your late father, only to find bulldozers, construction workers, and an entire army of hard hats pouring concrete. As if you didn't exist. That was me. And the woman behind it all, a woman who called herself the president of the brand new neighborhood HOA. A woman I would come to know as Karen. Yes, an actual HOA Karen had the nerve to build 36 homes on my land without so much as knocking on my door. And the day I locked the gate and handed out eviction papers to every last one of them was the day my life, and theirs, changed forever. Before I dive into how it all unfolded, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you love shocking, emotional, real life stories where justice finally wins. Trust me, you won't want to miss the ending of this one. I grew up in the countryside on land my father bought back in the 1970s. 80 acres of rolling fields, oak trees, and a small creek running through the middle of it. That land was sacred to me. My father always told me, son, land is the one thing they're not making more of. Hold on to it. Protect it. So when he passed, I made sure taxes were paid, the fence lines were kept, and the deed stayed in my name. I didn't live there full time anymore, but it was still mine. One spring, I drove out to check on the property, and nearly slammed my truck brakes when I turned the corner. Rows of half-built houses stretched across the field where I used to chase fireflies as a boy. Foundations poured. Framing going up. Cement trucks rumbling. I thought I'd driven into the wrong place, but no. This was my land. I knew every fence post, every tree, every bend in the creek, and someone was building an entire subdivision on it without permission. I stormed up to the first man I saw in a neon vest. "What the hell are you doing on my land?" I demanded. He looked at me confused and said, "Talk to the HOA. We just build where we're told. On my property." That's when I met her. Karen, short blonde bob, oversized sunglasses, clipboard clutched to her chest like a weapon. She looked me up and down like I was trespassing. "Sir, you can't be here. This is a private development." Private development. I nearly choked. "Lady, this is my family's land. You don't own 1 inch of it." She smirked, the kind of smirk that makes your blood boil. "We've filed all the paperwork. This is HOA territory now. If you don't like it, take it up with the county." And with that, she turned her back to me. I spent the next month buried in legal documents, county offices, and late-night phone calls with attorneys. Turns out Karen and her so-called HOA had filed fake permits, bribed a zoning clerk, and started selling lots to unsuspecting families. 36 homes were already half-built, some even sold to buyers who thought they were moving into their dream neighborhood. I was livid. My father's words echoed in my mind. Protect it. But here's the twist. Instead of storming in with guns blazing, I waited. I let them keep building. I let them invest every dollar, every beam, every shingle. Because I knew something the deed never left my name. The law was on my side. The day the final roof shingles were nailed down, I called a locksmith. We chained the gates shut. No one in, no one out. Then, I stood at the edge of the cul-de-sac as families started to arrive with moving trucks, wide smiles on their faces, until they saw me standing there with a stack of official eviction notices. "Who are you?" one man asked, his wife clutching his arm. "The landowner," I said firmly. "And you're all trespassing." The crowd grew restless. Karen stormed out of one of the model homes furious. "You can't do this! These people bought their homes fair and square." I handed her the first notice, my lawyer standing beside me with the county sheriff. "Actually, I can. Every single one of these lots was built illegally on stolen land. I own this property, and you're all being evicted." You could hear the gasps. Families cried. Men shouted. Karen turned pale, her little empire crumbling in front of her. But I didn't back down. Not for 1 second. That night, as I drove away from my locked gate, I realized this was just the beginning. The fight wasn't over. Court battles, lawsuits, angry neighbors. All of it was coming my way. But I was ready, because this wasn't just about land anymore. This was about justice. When you lock 36 families out of their brand new homes, people don't just go quietly. The morning after I served eviction papers, local news trucks were lined up down the road. Headlines screamed, "Homeowners tricked. Subdivision built on stolen land." But I wasn't the thief. I was the victim. And Karen was the con artist who started it all. Karen tried everything to paint me as the villain. She went on TV crying crocodile tears about how I was destroying families and stealing homes from hardworking people. But the truth was simple. Those homes were never hers to sell. She had pocketed millions in down payments and left everyone high and dry. The buyers were victims, too. But instead of hating her, most of them turned their anger on me. For weeks, I drove out to check my land and was met with mobs of furious families shouting at me. "We put our life savings into this house. Where are our kids supposed to live? You greedy monster!" It hurt. I wanted to scream that I wasn't the one who lied to them, that I was protecting my father's legacy. But explaining logic to angry people is like shouting into the wind. And Karen stood there fanning the flames, feeding them lies. But here's the thing, lies don't stand up in court. Evidence does. And I had the deed, the tax records, the county filings. The law was a hammer in my hand, and I was ready to swing. The lawsuit dragged on for months. Karen tried every trick in the book. Delays, fake documents, even a countersuit claiming I was squatting on her land. It would have been laughable if it wasn't so infuriating. Finally, the judge slammed the gavel. The ruling was crystal clear. I was the rightful owner. Every home built on that land was illegal. The HOA was dissolved. Karen was ordered to pay restitution, though by then, she'd blown most of the money. Families scrambled to sue her, but most were left with nothing but shattered dreams. You might think I celebrated, but truthfully I didn't. I looked at those 36 houses and felt nothing but sadness. All those families tricked by one greedy woman. Kids who thought they had bedrooms painted, yards waiting for swing sets. Now left with nothing. That's when I made the hardest decision of my life. Instead of bulldozing everything, I opened negotiations. Some families scraped together enough to legally buy lots from me. Others moved on, bitter and broken. A few I let stay, under strict contracts. It wasn't perfect, but it was better than seeing an entire neighborhood die under Karen's shadow. As for Karen, she went to prison. Fraud, theft, forgery, you name it. The last time I saw her, she wasn't wearing oversized sunglasses and carrying a clipboard. She was wearing an orange jumpsuit, eyes hollow, all her arrogance gone. I drove home that night, past the gates of what was once stolen from me. For the first time in months, I felt peace. My father's words echoed again, protect it. I had. So, if you take anything from my story, let it be this: don't let anyone take what's yours. Whether it's your land, your dignity, or your dreams, protect it, even if the whole world calls you crazy for standing your ground. And before we close, if you enjoyed this story, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more powerful, emotional, real life tales like this one. Your support means the world. It keeps these stories alive. Because at the end of the day, justice isn't just about winning in court. It's about knowing you stood up for what's right, even when everyone else tried to tear you down. People often think that once a judge bangs the gavel, the story is over. The truth is, the real story begins after the courtroom doors close. Winning the case against Karen felt like climbing a mountain, but what waited on the other side was just as steep: rebuilding trust, healing wounds, and deciding what kind of future my land, and the people tied to it, would have. After the ruling, my phone never stopped ringing. Families begged, pleaded, sometimes threatened. Please, my kids love their bedrooms. Don't make us leave. I'll do anything, just let us stay. You ruined our lives." The hardest part wasn't saying no. It was deciding when to say yes, because I knew I couldn't save everyone. The land was valuable, not just in dollars but in history. My father had built his life around it. If I let everyone stay, I'd lose control, and his legacy would be swallowed by chaos. If I forced everyone out, I'd be seen as heartless. So I walked a razor's edge, family by family, case by case. Some I allowed to buy plots legally, even at lower prices, because they had proof they'd been scammed, and I could see the desperation in their eyes. Others, I had to turn away. People who shouted, cursed, or tried to strong-arm me like I was the villain. That part broke me the most. Meanwhile, the media circus raged on. One day I was a hero, man reclaimed stolen land from corrupt HOA. The next day, I was the villain again. Greedy owner evicts families from dream homes. Reporters parked outside the gates, microphones shoved in my face. I learned quickly that the truth doesn't matter as much as the story people want to hear. And then there were the houses themselves. 36 homes standing like ghosts across my fields. Every time I drove past, I imagined kids playing in yards, couples having barbecues, dogs chasing frisbees. Empty houses are eerie, silent, waiting, almost accusing. What was once my father's wide, open land now looked like a half-born town stuck between life and death. One evening as the sun set over the roofs, I parked my truck and just sat there. I thought about bulldozing it all, tearing down every last piece of Karen's empire and restoring the land to the way it was. Grass, trees, open skies. But then I remembered the faces of the children I'd seen on moving day. The little boy clutching a soccer ball. The girl dragging a dollhouse out of a van. They hadn't asked for any of this. That's when the idea hit me. If Karen had built a nightmare, maybe I could turn it into something good. The next morning, I made calls. To lawyers, planners, even a few of the families I'd allowed to stay. Slowly, carefully, I started forming a vision. Not an HOA, not a scam, not a neighborhood of lies, but a small, honest community. One where the land was still respected, where contracts were fair, and where families who deserved a second chance could have won. It wouldn't be easy, and it sure wouldn't be quick. But it was better than watching empty houses rot into reminders of betrayal. Of course, not everyone supported me. Some families hated me no matter what I did. They held rallies outside the gate, waving signs, screaming at TV cameras that I was a monster. But others, quietly, cautiously, thanked me. A mother pulled me aside one day, tears in her eyes, and said, "If you hadn't stopped her, we would have lost everything. You saved us, even if it doesn't feel that way right now." That one moment kept me going when the weight felt unbearable. Karen, meanwhile, wasn't done haunting me. Even from prison, she tried sending letters, claiming she'd appeal, that she'd get me back. I threw every one of them straight into the fire. She could rot behind bars for all I cared. The turning point came months later, when the first family I'd allowed to stay invited me to dinner. They'd bought their plot fair and square this time, with real paperwork, a real contract. As I sat at their table, their little girl showed me a drawing she'd made of their new home. Crayons on paper, a roof, a yard, a dog in the front. And in the corner, she'd drawn me, not as a villain, not as the man who almost took it all away, but as someone smiling next to them. That night, I realized something: this land wasn't just about me anymore. It wasn't only my father's legacy. It was about the future, about giving people a place to belong the right way. Maybe that was what my father had meant all along, when he said, "Protect it. Protect it not just from thieves like Karen, but for the generations who would come after me." Over time, the bitterness faded. The lawsuits ended. Families settled it. Grass grew tall in the empty lots that hadn't been bought. And though the land would never be exactly as it was before, it was still mine. Still strong. Still alive. Looking back now, I realize Karen thought she was building an empire. But all she built was a stage for her own downfall. What she didn't count on was me locking the gate, standing my ground, and reminding her, and everyone else, that land, legacy, and justice can't be stolen with a fake clipboard and a smug smile. So, if you're watching this and wondering what the lesson is, here it is. Don't let anyone tell you your fight isn't worth it. Don't let the world paint you as the villain, when you know you're standing for what's right. And above all, protect what matters to you, even if you stand alone at the gate holding nothing but a piece of paper that proves the truth. And if this story hit you like it hit me living it, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Every click helps us share more emotional, powerful stories where the little guy fights back and wins. Because sometimes justice doesn't just look like a courtroom victory. Sometimes justice looks like a locked gate, a piece of land defended, and a future rewritten the right way.